Hello and welcome to Lavo's tutorial for properly exporting models for Sins of a Solar Empire from 3ds Max and then the cleanup and tangent making in Softimage XSI. In this tutorial we'll be making use of Autodesk 3ds Max software and making use of Softimage 7.5. Softimage 7.5 is also free. Anyway, now what this whole thing is all about is that many since the modding community, even myself up until recently, apparently haven't been exporting their models right, and as a result, turns out that models have not looked as well as they could in game. One example, not one example. There are many examples of this out there. I know I've already posted at least 2 of them on the SoaSE ModDB page. Anyway, that being said, I must credit Max Loef of the SCA3 because he's the one who really taught me all of this. That being said, on to the meat. One of the really interesting parts of this whole process is that if you have a model that's already in-game and its UV is fine, there's no visual bugs, no oddities, nothing like that, then you can even reverse import from Sins rather than having to use the original source. In fact, that's what I'll be doing. To do that, I'll be making use of the Sins Max tool. It has been included in the info for this tutorial in case you want to download it. And I'll just note that I do not take any credit for this, as I did not make it for myself, but it's this wonderful individual. That being said, let's import the mesh that we're going to be working on today, and take it from there. Alright, now we have the mesh in 3ds, which is a good first step. And now we go through what we actually want to do here. What we really want to do is to create proper smoothing, or just auto smooth anyway, for the model. Now, if you're like a hardcore modeler or somebody who's really knowledgeable, using auto smooth might not be your first choice to run to, and if that's the case, that's fine. Use whatever method you are, but for people like me who are not modelers and not that experienced with modeling, this is a way to really improve things without, going all hardcore about it and doing really details. Anyway, now we select the model and we go to the Modify tab. After you go into the Modify tab, we go to the Selection menu and click Polygon. And, of course, all of this assumes that we already have an editable mesh. If we do not have an editable mesh, you can right-click, go to Convert To. Okay, that assumes that. Okay, go to Convert To, and then go to Convert To Editable Poly, or Editable Mesh. I forget which of the two. I think it's Editable Poly. Anyway, assuming it works, we click Polygon, and then after that we select the whole thing. Once you select the whole mesh, it should be all red, as it is in this picture here. And after that we scroll down and go to set auto smooth to 35, then click auto smooth. And suddenly things change up, and you see that, at least in the case of this mesh that was imported from Sins, we have a proper number of smoothing groups. That is one that isn't like 14, which is meaningless. And we're not done yet. Before we can export, we must detach each of these elements. Now what you do is go to Select by SG, select one of the groups, click OK. After that we scroll back up to data geometry, we go to Detach. Make sure Detach to Element is selected and click OK. After that we repeat this process for every single one of the groups, and we'll see that usually different parts of the mesh are selected with each part of the smoothing group, or rather each smoothing group. Sometimes it's a very small amount, Sometimes you can barely even see what's there, but you know, it doesn't really matter. Now that that's done, we just deselect polygon, select our model, and we go to export. Now to export, you have to have Autodesk Crosswalk. This is an additional plugin, and I've included a link to it in the description. What this does is it essentially lets you do a proper XSI export. This is important as this is how we can properly not only export the model, import it in Softimage, but also so we can triangulate it, which I'll be mentioning just in a moment. See, now when you get into the export, when you have options, you need to make sure that triangulate is selected. This way the model is properly triangulated, and a bunch of other fancy magic that I don't really know how to describe, but in the end works. Oftentimes when you export, you'll get in some sort of error dialog. It really is irrelevant, and unless for some reason the thing does not properly import in Softimage, you can just ignore it. And with that done, we now switch over to Softimage. Now, what we do for Softimage is we scroll down to Crosswalk and do Crosswalk import. You'll see it'll ask for it'll look for Crosswalk file types and stuff, and just a bunch of exercise. But now you click the ... there, scroll over to wherever you saved your file, and then click import. Now when you import it, if you import it from a model from Sins, you'll notice that it's rotated on its side and looks very strange, which we'll fix in one moment. Before we do that though, we take the mesh here and we just move it back to regular scene root, because in this thing called max scene root, which we don't need, after moving it we can delete it. Same, and we can also get rid of the import crosswalk icons, settings or whatever, because we don't need that. And we also have a crosswalk props setting that we also do not need. Now that we have the model in Softimage, we can fix its orientation. And now, as we can see here, it looks all nice, prim, and proper. And you'll also notice that versus, say, if you were doing a mostly incorrect import method earlier, you'll see that there's a lot of these blue lines in addition to the white. In this particular model, there might be seemingly more blue than white, because it's a very angular model. Blue signifies a hard edge, which is really what makes you see like proper boxes, proper crates, and stuff like that. It essentially looks better. And now that we have the proper model properly oriented, we have the skin isolated in its own section, we can go on to making the tangent map. Now, assuming this really only works if you have properly exported the model with smoother groups, and if you have, it's very nice, very simple. We go to here, we have property, texture projection, cubic. This creates a new texture map, not texture map, UV map, sorry. And after that, we go down with all of this we do with our model selected, because it's doing it with reference to the model, so it needs to know what it's working with. We go down to property, tangent. Now we are in a pick session. We click pick, go to clusters, and click texture projection cubic XY, the one that we just made. And now we'll see that UVs, it goes to texture projection. Now that that's done, we expand our model. We expand the model, then we expand polygon mesh, clusters, node properties, and then tangents. And after tangent, we have this thing called tangent OP2. We double click that and we just increase the smoothing to 180. And really this is for many people, if you don't feel like really putting a detailed check, you can probably export it right now, like this, assuming you, well, rather you export it after you link up all the textures. That being said, now to double check the model, the edges, we turn on shaded, and also a good thing to do is turning on headlight. And we scroll down, and one thing you'll know to immediately look at after, and that needs to be fixed, or is an issue, or is a sign of something wrong, is see here that there's like this bleeding, that it's not like an instant change of colors, but it's just like an odd, it's almost like sickly seeping into the other one. That's not a good thing. Really is not a good thing. Of course I say that, but the edges seem to be relatively fine. Oh wait, no. See, here. This is an example of something that probably, at least for this model, could be a hard edge, or should be a hard edge, right here. To fix an edge, we go to you can use the raycast edge tool. Now I forget, admittedly 7.5 does not have this window here up by default, but if I remember, no. I'm trying to remember how I actually called this nice tool up here, because I think it's not always. I forget exactly how to get this one up here, but there's a raycast edge tool in Softimage, and basically that's what we need. Now you select the edge or edges, and oh wait, no, and then you go to disconnect components, and now you see here immediately the shape here is somewhat improved. And here's another something that should also really be a hard edge again. See, usually you see some really instant reaction, or okay. See now, before we had this intense case of bleeding, but now it's really been somewhat corrected and fixed up. And judging. And one thing is, the best rule of thumb for this stuff is use your common sense. Does it? Oh. Whoa. And of course, I'm just screwing up majorly. Here. A bit of an embarrassing thing, but this happens when modding sins. Just how it is. And of course I will note that you can actually do multiple edges at once by holding the shift key. And then you can get rid of edges you don't want by holding the control key. This applies for all raycast and all raycast functions, not just raycast edge. And now you see it's quite a bit better, whereas this top panel here is now its own solid color, and this one is really its own green. Another way, if these edges still aren't fixed, and these pattern-like parts still look really weird, you can also use the raycast polygon tool to select and disconnect. But sometimes this has undesired effects. Well, no, sometimes it just looks odd. In this case, it just doesn't work well, but I'm putting that tool out there just for people who are curious. Another popular way to use the raycast polygon tool is to actually attach multiple components or skins, making new materials for a texture. Such as, for example, if you have a different skin for the engine, you can use this, and once you've selected everything, so technically you should really select like all the engine stuff, you can hit and another useful tool is clicking S lets you just move the model around, and then holding down the right mouse button lets you rotate it. It's like you can like select one thing, go to another engine unit or whatever it is that's using the same texture, select it, and then go to create cluster. Now, as you can see here, we have a new skin section here for these two top engines. This model doesn't actually need engines, so that's why I'm just including it for the purposes of demonstration. And now I'll actually briefly go over skins, because this is something that's useful. You go to View, Rendering Texturing, Material Manager. And then to add more stuff to this very, very dull screen, we go down to Nodes, Texture, Image. And you can like you need like 3 of them, copy, paste, and see it's 2 sections, blah blah blah.